Travels of the Ellis Arbor is a TTRPG story set in the world of Bastion using the Vagrant Sun campaign setting. Tune in for episode 50, Resolve. Finally, the viscous remains of the abyssal creatures drifted harmlessly to the ground as the cavern fell silent once again. Light turned to shade as all remnants of Arcana began to dwindle, swallowed up by the darkness of Carpathian. From its remains, that large blue globe continued to drift, larger than one might have expected, expanding to fill the space of a heavy boulder. As it drifted harmlessly in the air, the light began to clarify, and a translucent image appeared from within. Sitting comfortably, with an arm outstretched upon the surface of the sphere, looking ragged and wrecked, a figure. Not just any figure, of course. Adorned with trinkets and baubles, a necklace of gemstone-crusted brass rings, and ear cuffs with fine silver jewelry. None other than the artificer of the Ellis Arbor, Nout.
I suppose I have a bit of explaining to do. I didn't expect to have to discuss my actions quite so suddenly.
As the dust settled and the remnants of ash cleared from the area, Darian, Edward, and Carpathian appeared from their hiding places. Carpathian still clutching his shoulder, pulling bandages and straps from his satchel to cover his wounds. As he approached, Darian couldn't help but notice a peculiar feeling. He was calm. Not only had he endured such a battle, but simply being in the presence of Nout reminded him of that pulsing sensation. The burning desire of the Lady of Blood, wishing Nout's demise. But there was nothing. No anger nor resentment. Only a relief that washed over the captain and drained him of his apprehension. The captain looked down to his hammer, still enchanted with whatever magic Nout had blessed it with. Blackened chains of Arcana warped across the handle, the end still tarnished and pulsing with a strange kind of energy. And in the place where the sigil of the Lady of Blood once was, a bright green icon of a kind he did not recognize.
We seem to be missing a member. Tell me, something hasn't happened to our Myconid, has it?
Edward clambered over the blue sphere, hoisting his rifle over his shoulder and brushing the ash from his goggles. As fine as can be. We got into some trouble navigating the jungles on our way to find you. It would have been a different story if it weren't... Wait, the sprite? What happened to that sprite? Darian looked on to where he'd seen the sprite of Silas Marr, swallowed by one of the amalgam's many jaws. Sifting through the ashes and dust, there was nothing that remained of that spirit. Looks as though the darkness did not pair well with the light of this creature. A pity. Strange to know such a fate would befall such a harmless creature. Though, as Darian recalled the cackling and musing barely moments before, he wondered if there was some other part to play, ordained for that helpful little creature. That spirit that joined us here assisted us in bringing more to the Chapel of Pleiades, which is where we should return post-haste. The acolyte mentioned you were searching for ingredients to conduct a severance ritual. The blood of a demon, correct? Nout began to push on the exterior of the sphere, and it floated towards a heaping pile of the amalgam's remains.
You could say I'd almost completed my task. I'd found a way to draw the essence from these abyssal entities, but this one thought to make a meal of me. Fortunately, one of the scrolls within Oracrio's chamber allowed me to create this field of resilience. If you don't mind, could you collect a vial of abyssal ash? I can distill the ingredients for the ritual from the creature's remains.
Taking a flask from his pocket, Carpathian drew a portion of ash and sealed it tight. Holding it towards Nout, he motioned for the artificer to take it.
If you don't mind holding on to it for a moment, I'm going to stay in the globe for a while. I've managed to suppress the enchantment of the lady for a moment, but I'm not certain I'm entirely safe. Not yet, anyway.
Darian looked toward his hammer.
You did this? Is this magic of your creation?
You could say that. Let's just say that the abyssal nature of this place isn't entirely foreign to me. A tale I'd be happy to share once we're free of Carpathian.
With a nod of acceptance, the crew gathered their belongings and began ascending the stairs once more to the veil between Midas Cairn and Carpathian. The warbling light of the resilient orb Nout had placed himself within was more than ample to light their path. Having defeated such a massive creature, portions of the darkness burned away to reveal areas where light persisted. Though color ebbed and flowed, it was enough for them to navigate the treacherous passage. Across the winding paths and up through the throat of the mountain, until finally, the stagnant, waning air of the abyss was replaced with the overpowering stench of the mountain veil once more. Night had fallen over Midas Cairn, and much of the inhabitants were either quiet in their dormitories or sullenly drinking the evening away. Soft music floated through the streets of the settlement, and torch fires burned the smell of blood from the crew's senses. Finally, with a heavy sigh of relief, they returned to the steps of the Chapel of Pleiades and to the comfort therein. Among the acolytes busy fussing around the chapel interior, freedmen attended to the candles adorning many of the pews. And just behind, toddling at a slow but deliberate pace, was the effervescent and resolute form of their Myconid companion. More! Excitedly, the mushroom leapt towards their young friend, emitting a colourful spray of pinkish spores as they reunited with the group. Even Darian couldn't help but grin, seeing the joy return to Edward's face. Snuffing his candlelighter, the acolyte approached the band.
Well, welcome back to a land not of the abyss. Wildflower informed me that you'd begun your journey, but I didn't think to see you return so quickly.
I'd not ventured far before encountering a demon of change, Freedman. I'd spent much of my time hiding from it, but it took no time at all for them, the crew, to find me.
Indeed. Well, do you have what you require?
Freedman and Nout squirreled away to an interior room beyond, preparing whatever components might be needed for the ritual to take place. Given a moment's respite, Edward and Moore took to catching up over their previous encounter. Carpathian was provided a healing salve to mend the wounds upon his shoulder, taking to one of the nearby pews to change his bandages. But for Darian, the events of the last days seemed to move at such an expeditious pace in his mind. Only the evening before, they'd been searching for the cairn to restore Moore's condition. Hours ago, he'd been entwined in a battle against a horrendous demon of the pit. Now, barely giving him a moment to catch his breath, Nout had returned to the party with the requisite components to dispel the hold that his patron had over him. All at once, aching tiredness, confusion, and doubt flooded Darian's mind. He turned on his heel and headed for the entrance to the chapel, taking a moment to breathe in the midnight air. The light of Pleiades was cold. Even in the evening, he could feel the lack of radiant comfort that usually accompanied the Vagrant Sun. Even here in a place that the sun did not shine, he couldn't help but feel as if eyes were watching him, making his next move. with each encounter that led him here. Adeline, Killian, Araquiel, and Chester's band. It had all felt as if the lady had been pursuing her own ambitions through him. But now, in this most auspicious of moments, with the influence of the Lady of Blood suppressed through Nout's strange magic, all he felt was disillusion. Had his only purpose been divined by the guiding hand of the Lady of Blood? What would he be without her influence? Every task that lay before him, he could surmount with the armaments given him by the Lady and the faithful actions of his crew, his companions. Who was he without the Lady? Who would he be to his crew? And at that moment, he felt the cold, smooth glass of the bottle within his jacket. He gripped the pocket as he remembered that one unfailing presence throughout all his journeys. Even when Carpathian disappeared from their shipwreck. Even while Edward was grappling with the devil. When Morag gave over to the spirits of the jungle, and when Nout attempted to defy the Lady. His resolve had always been tethered to that small glass bottle. As he took it from his pocket, he held it against the glimmering light of Pleiades, the moonlight that gleamed around him. The ship held within, its sails caught high, and the ornate arches of its prow as magnificent as the day he first laid eyes upon her. As he turned it in hand, he felt his strength, his resolve return. He read the golden filigree of the letters written upon the ship's hull, shining against its rich mahogany frame. And as he pocketed the bottle, returning to the interior of the chapel, he let the memory of those golden letters restore him. If he was to be rid of the Lady of Blood, it would not be for naught. His vessel and his flagship were his purpose. He and his crew would sail it once again. The letters upon the ship's hull, the engraved title of his magnificent vessel, the Ellis Arbor. Travels of the Ellis Arbor is made possible by the generous support of our subscribers, followers, and most notably, our patrons. Special thanks to new and existing patrons for our Moon, Wedge, Crown, and Hex tier subscriptions. Please subscribe, give a like or a comment, follow us on Twitter, and stay tuned for the next episode. Make sure to follow us here on YouTube, on Spotify, and on twitch.tv/lonomy. Stay tuned for Chapter 7. And don't forget, take care of each other.